You know, we always talk on this channel about certain players who are finally giving a chance in the NHL after expansion. And I think this player really sums up that formula, because when he came to major prominence with that big 1962 Hamilton Red Wings, where he was the captain of their Memorial Cup squad, Howie Menard, not the biggest drink of water, 5'8", 168, but he was such a legend of a hard worker. Never drafted, of course, but he eventually became one of the most popular and the most celebrated, what we call AHL hometown hero. He played with several teams in AHL, but his distinction of playing with such popular AHL teams, again, he became a living legend. Now, born in the beautiful community of Timmins, Ontario, he eventually played 151 games in the NHL. But with Detroit, LA, Chicago, and Oakland, again, wherever he went, he was extremely beloved, a good teammate, good in the dressing room, do anything on the ice, playing a center role with some of the top players on those squads. Now, most of his career, again, which lasted from 62 to 77, was spent in the AHL. Now, the brother of Howie Menard continues to hold the record for most points in a playoff game in the AHL Calder Cup, with 4 goals and 3 assists against the Cleveland Barons on April 12, 72, while playing for the Baltimore Clippers. Now, only 2 players have tied his record since. Now, first came to major prominence with his original OHA team, the Toronto Marlies. In 1960, he had 50 points in 48 games, 2 points in the playoffs. 61, he split time between the Marlies and the Hamilton Red Wings, 45 games in the regular season with 18 goals. In the playoffs, put up 10 points in 12 games. Now, with Hamilton in 61-62, strong regular season and point a game pace with 44 in 48 games, 10 points in the playoffs, but he really opened out in the Memorial Cup run. 22 points in 14 games, including 9 goals. Now, he broke into pro hockey with the Pittsburgh Hornets in 1963, almost hit the 20-goal mark, 16 goals in 69 games, 45 points. 64, he finally broke through with the Red Wings with 3 games, but played the majority of the season in Cincinnati of the CPHL, 62 points in 69 games. 65 with the Memphis Wings, 42 points in 61 games. Now, 66, this was the big shift for him. He started playing with the Springfield Indians of the AHL, 57 points in 71 games, including 15 goals. And in this season, he saw his first AHL playoff action. Just remember this, because it's going to come up very soon. 5 points in 6 games, including 3 goals. Now, with Springfield in 67, the vaunted franchise, for many, it was his first of 2 or 3 career years. 64 points in 68 games with 25 goals. Now, with the LA Kings in the NHL for the 68 season, the team's name was changed to the Springfield Kings, 51 points in 37 games. But in his rookie campaign with LA, he got in as an original King, 24 points in 35 games, 9 big goals with 5 big assists in the playoffs. Now, we split the 69 season between Springfield, where he had 18 points in 20 games, and he hit double figures in goals for LA that year, 27 points in 56 games. Now, 69-70 was a very weird campaign. He spent pretty well the whole year in the NHL between Chicago and Oakland. He had 4 points and 10 assists for 14 points in 57 games, but played in 1 playoff game for Oakland. Now, 71 found himself back in the NHL with the Providence Reds with 31 points in 59 games. 72, another great season for him with the Clippers. We did a podcast on the Clippers recently. 56 points in 73 games. But the WHL came calling in 73. 50 points in 59 games. 12 goals. Now, in the playoffs with the Clippers in 72, 18 points in 18 games, and he's what he called his money numbers continued with Salt Lake in 73. He had 7 points in 9 playoff games. Now, 74, back with the Clippers. The big career year, a big season for Mr. Bernard. 42 goals and 39 assists for 81 points in 73 games, 6 points in the playoffs, where the Clippers at the time were probably one of the best offensive teams of the 1970s in the AHL. Now, 74-75, again, a strange year. He played with the Clippers most of the season, but found himself back in Providence in 75 for 10 games. Back with the Clippers again in 76, but of course he came to major prominence on the OHA Senior League by playing with the Whitby Warriors for 23 games that year with 19 points, including 11 goals in 23 games. Now, the NHL numbers showed some very interesting statistics. 65 points in 151 games, including 23 goals, 10 points in 19 playoff games. But it doesn't tell the whole story. Howie was a very, very team-oriented player. Again, no matter what he was asked to do on the ice, he tried to do. Now, he wasn't scared to take a penalty every once in a while, but he was never a dirty player. But I'm talking to people who are fans of the Hornets, fan of the Hamilton Red Wings, the Springfield Indians, the Kings, the Provinces Reds, the Clippers. Wherever he went, he was a very beloved player, because when you're a success in the AHL, the NHL is just a step away, and he finally got that chance. And for the time he was there, again, he put up productive numbers, which you'll want to see. Now, AHL numbers really bear out some interesting stats. 456 points in 561 career games, 177 goals and 279 assists. But again, don't tell the whole story. You look at the various AHL teams he played for in their Calder Cup runs. He couldn't have gone as far as he did in the regular season and playoffs without Howie. And you look at someone like him, the 1974 season, he would average, between 10 and 25 goals. But to open out in 74 with those big 42 goals, he finally had the right line mates, the right system. And the 30 goals a season that he predicted for him in his AHL years and the 20 goals on the NHL level was finally realized. And at the time, you got to understand, he was, I think, 32 or 33, born in 42. He was, almost at his peak. It's not too often that somebody gets in their pro hockey prime at age 32. But I look at the rough numbers as it stands right now. To score as many goals as he did on every level, 300 or so at minor pro, and scoring 60, 70 goals in major junior over a number of seasons, just tremendous. But I always wondered how we would have got a chance with the Maple Leafs or the Vancouver Canucks or the Canadians. Howie would have been a good third or fourth line center. A guy could score 10 goals, play defense, could play shorthand. But like I said, my dad said he was one of the hardest workers he ever saw in his life. But the time is there when the Kings really needed somebody to stabilize that new team, those 2 games. Like I said, almost 100 games for the Kings over those 2 seasons. And I know the King faithful really appreciated the experience, because he brought a lot to the Kings in 68 and 69. But to see him play with Chicago in 1970, my dad said, maybe he's going to win a Stanley Cup with Chicago. But again, the Seals were calling as well. But ladies and gentlemen, all I know is that if Howie Menard knows anything from the fans, he knows that the fans know he gave 110% in every game he played. My dad said he saw him in a game, I think a Hockey Night in Canada, might have been the Orly King game or something, against Toronto, and he was playing at the Maple Leaf Gardens. I think someone tried to goon him in the back of the net, and it was AHL players, he could protect himself. He made a move, and the guy basically went into the boards before he could even hit him dirty. And my dad said he remembered that, because Howie would never deliberately hurt a player, but he wouldn't let it be hurt, like he had eyes in the back of his head. But like with expansion, like players like Howie finally got a full chance at the NHL, and I think the league at the start were better for it. He was mired in the Detroit system because it was hard to make Detroit's lineup. I think Detroit had 14 prospects that year he played in 64, either made the team or were stuck in the minors, and it was an interesting time for hockey, because the original 6 were starting to fade away. But don't forget, expansion only was announced in 1966. I think it was in the spring or the early summer. And I can imagine the anticipation of Howie and the other players of saying, we got 120 new jobs, we got a chance. because it's almost like opening up a second shift, and he should know that well. In his part of Ontario, different locations, when you open up a second shift, it's just a boom time for him. So, an original LA King, again, a respected AHLer, nothing but good to say about the great legend of Howie Menard. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's the latest in our AHL, NHL Vintage podcast. If you like what we're doing here, give us a like, comment, or subscribe. And don't forget, the WHA, again, it made jobs, but that initial, I call it the expansion 12 with the original 6 and expansion teams. Thank God people like Howie Menard were finally given a chance, because knocking a door for 6 or 10 years for Major Junior all the way up, your knuckles get sore on the ice and off the ice. No joke. Thanks for listening. Bye.